What's good, everybody? This your boy Carlton Irvin. Welcome to the Broad Street Bullies Fantasy Football channel. I am doing this video on my way to work. I switched my shift, so for today at least. So I am doing a 6 to 2. But basically, let's talk about what we seen on Thursday Night Football. That game was amazing. It fell short of the projected points in terms of if you played the spread, the over and under, but it was a good game. I seen a lot of fight in Detroit. I seen sloppiness with the Kansas City Chiefs. They obviously missed, Chris Jones and Travis Kelce, and from a fantasy football perspective, if you started Kadarius Toney as a flex or even as a number 1 or number 2 wide receiver, depending on what leagues you're in, you were disappointed. I also noticed that Sky Moore, I started him in one of my leagues with multiple flex, and he netted me 0.40 points. The main takeaways from this game was that Jared Goff is a solid quarterback. He can still sling it. I thought he would have threw at least 2 touchdowns this game, but that didn't happen. Amon-Ra St. Brown is obviously, the target hog for Detroit Lions, but you also have Khalif Raymond and Josh Reynolds that will take precious receptions away from Amon-Ra St. Brown. But other than that, Amon-Ra St. Brown was, I think, 6 for 7. 70, I think it was 71 or 77 yards and a touchdown. I have him in a bunch of my leagues. It's the Sun God. He scored me about 19 points, around that 17 to 19 points, and in some leagues, depending on the settings. Yesterday, I took a chance with starting David Montgomery in one of my leagues. The game script played out how I thought it was going to play out, because when you look at the over and under, it was projected to be a very high scoring game, and usually it's the first week. You still have offenses and defenses getting their feet wet, and the offenses usually take a little while before they get their feet wet. But what I seen from David Montgomery, 21 carries, I think 78 yards and touchdown, didn't have no receptions. It would have been nice for him to have 1 or 2 receptions, but a lot of people are mad because if you started Jahmyr Gibbs, I started Jahmyr Gibbs in a couple of leagues, but if you started Jahmyr Gibbs, it was like, you didn't see him. He got about, I think 9 or 10 touches or something. He didn't see him, but what he does look like is a future fantasy star in the making. He looked explosive. He had a couple long runs. I think he had like 1 or 2 long runs, or was it one long run, probably like 10, 15 yards, and it was like he received some passing work. From a fantasy football perspective, it's going to be a two-headed monster with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get the more passing work. I can see Jahmyr Gibbs already at least possibly touching 60 receptions. That's how it looks. But David Montgomery, he's going to out-carry Jahmyr Gibbs. And I think that Jahmyr Gibbs will see about 6, 7 touchdowns maybe on the ground and some through the air. But I do think that, David Montgomery is going to fill that goal line work real well. And that was the consensus for, Jahmyr Gibbs to be taking down, the passing work, and David Montgomery to be the runner in between the tackles, short yardage, and the goal line work. David Montgomery took a little while to get going, but usually with David Montgomery, he's a volume type running back. He's one of those running backs that if you get him involved and you keep him involved, he will eventually pick it up as the game goes on. Now, I do think this is not the best game we've seen from David Montgomery, but it wasn't a bad start, especially for fantasy owners who, made the decision to start him. I've made the decision to start him in one of my high stakes leagues. I started him over James Cook. And at first I was going with James Cook, but when I analyzed the games, I was like, I personally didn't think the game was going to be as high scoring as the over and under predicted. Like, I think it was like 54 points and a half that was the over and under for the game. I thought it was going to be the type of game, like I thought it was going to be like that, a 28-21 game, but it turned out to be like 21-20. And when you have those game scripts will basically favor David Montgomery. But if it turned out to be a true shootout, it probably would have favored Jamar Gibbs. But I don't think people should panic on Jamar Gibbs. It's overreaction week 1 when it comes to fantasy football. I have him in some of my leagues. I'm not going to panic. I do see a situation where as the year goes by, you will see more explosive plays from Jahmyr Gibbs. And I still believe that you will see a lot of good work from David Montgomery. So that's just basically my takeaways. It was an exciting first game. The Detroit Lions was road warriors, and they picked up a tough win at Arrowhead Stadium. I think it was a good win for them. I think it's a good way for them to set momentum for the season. But that's all I got to say. That's my takeaways, for the game. And from fantasy football perspective, if you started David Montgomery, he did solid. He didn't, he wasn't great, but he did solid enough for you to possibly not lose your week, depending on what type of leagues you're in and what type of scoring settings you have in those leagues. But all right, I'm out. Like and subscribe.